Today we talk about one of the biggest watch brands that has one of the smallest catalogs. Seiko is both the ultimate hero and the ultimate villain of the watch world. It beat the Swiss with better, cheaper watches, and also killed the Swiss watch industry with the quartz crisis. Seiko pretty much single-handedly caused the quartz crisis. But now it is coming full circle with the introduction of Grand Seiko and, to a lesser extent, Presage, where Seiko is beating the Swiss again and forcing the Swiss to perhaps maybe not innovate, but to make better watches. This cover is the Presage Seiko catalog. It only covers the Presage, not all the different models and series. This is just Presage. It has a sort of glossy canvas hardcover. I don't know if you can see that, but well, soft cover. And it has Presage, Seiko's 1881. This is the Fall 2019 catalog. On the back you just have some barcode. And yeah. Of course, the elephant in the room is the size of the catalog. It is quite thin. And there's not much to say about that. I do wish that they put all of their different series into one catalog. It would have been nice and thick. This is only Presage, and because of that it's pretty thin. Inside, we begin with the theme of this catalog, which is Japanese craftsmanship. See, here we have urushi, this is lacquer, I believe, enamel, a different kind of enamel, shippo enamel, and porcelain, and all coming from different locations in Japan. This is what I think is very, very good with Seiko Presage models. They focus maybe not on the movement aspect of the art aspect of the watch, but they do make some pretty nice dials. Maybe not exactly to Grand Seiko specifications, but pretty good. We start with a porcelain watch, porcelain dialed watch. And though I'm not a huge fan of the sort of indentation subdials of these subdials, I do like the red Roman numeral, I like the hands, I like everything else, and I like that it's porcelain. Usually watches are ceramic. Well, when they have a dial kind of like this, it's ceramic, and that's the European way. I do like it that the sort of more Japanese to have it porcelain instead of enamel. They also have some beautiful lacquer models. I love the triple retrograde sort of subdials with 3 retrogrades, each of them different. With I love that with the gold accents. It's absolutely beautiful. Not sure I really love that sort of redder subdials on this one, but there's a model for everyone. They're beautiful. Not much else to say. Same with Presage enamel. It's quite nice, and I do like the hands. It's sort of more of the old Seiko back when it was called Laurel, more of that style, but they did make a sort of reissue homage to the Laurel with a Laurel on the dial a few years back. Here it's just Seiko but with more of that font. And I do like that case. I love how that looks, the side view, and it's nice and small. It's 39 millimeters. 39 to 40 millimeters is the perfect size for a watch, and this is just perfect. They have a blue enamel with some interesting sort of indentations in the enamel towards the center of the watch. I find that pretty interesting. Again, with that half moon seconds counterweight on there, which is pretty typical of these Presage Seiko models. The Roman numerals, it's blue. And this one is on a bracelet, so if you like bracelets and want a more dressy bracelet watch, that's pretty nice. We get now further into the catalog, and this catalog has sort of the higher end of the Presage model line up towards the beginning, and then sort of petering off towards the end, except for one thing which we will get to. This is just a more regular white enamel Presage. See, now again, those 3 retrogrades here, but they don't look quite as good as when it was with the black lacquer and the gold accents. I really love that watch. Here again, closer to what the Laurel models had. And now we move past the enamel, lacquer, porcelain models and into the more typical, maybe not typical, but the more common watches in the Presage lineup that may be cheaper. And one thing I do like that I forgot to mention is that the prices are right below the watch, right there when you're flipping through this catalog. See, my favorite lacquer with the triple retrograde, $2,000. 40.5 millimeters, slightly too big, but yeah. Here, more in the $600, $500 range. Now we're getting into the more affordable stuff. Some open heart thing that's a bit weird, and then that one with the bracelet. Yeah, that, see, on the leather, I like how this one looks, not so much this. I do like the blue porcelain on the leather. I think that fits very well, not so much this white dialed one. Some nice Tourneau shape. My favorite watch from Seiko is actually a Seiko Laurel that was Tourneau shaped and had a sub-seconds hand and had this beautiful golden ring, this glossy ring around the seconds. That Watch Geek did a video on that. But this Tourneau shape case from Seiko is quite nice. And now we come to what is the best part of the Presage collection. The cocktail time. This cocktail time, this first one, this first design is, well, I don't like it that much. With that sub dial, not for the seconds, but for the date. And I don't like these kinds of sub dials for a date. But on the next page we find for about $500, $425 to $500, the real beauty of the Seiko Presage cocktail time. Well, inspired by the cocktail bar, but it's the cocktail time. These watches are absolutely beautiful. They're maybe not the perfect size, 40.5, but they're everything I have in my perfect cheap dress watch, except they're better. They have the hands, they have that beautiful diamond on the seconds hand. They have a nice case, they have the dial. I mean, it's a starburst dial, not a whatever it's called, star, the other star thing, whatever, the sunburst. Yeah, instead of a sunburst, I think someone called it a starburst, and it has these thicker ridges. And I saw one in person, and it just blows everything else out of the water. It's a beautiful dial when you have a more less expensive dial, less expensive techniques to make a dial. It's the perfect dial for a dress watch. Plays with the light in an incredible way. I cannot say enough about the Presage cocktail time. Fortunately, the movement inside is perhaps not as good for the price as it could be, but that dial. At the end, we have a little section going over all the specifications, 4 pages of this with the prices again, and that's it. Now on to my personal opinion. I am not a fan of all Seikos. I think the Seiko 5 series is absolutely terrible. It is complete trash. I mean, I don't know how they can sell it, and I don't know how people can say that it's good. The movement inside is awful. The accuracy is awful. The way the watch is... I mean, the movement doesn't have hacking. It doesn't have hand winding. It is useless in my mind. As a mechanical watch, it is completely useless. And it costs twice as much as this watch, which has an NH30, well, in this case, an NH36, and can offer so much more. I don't understand. Even the dial finishing isn't all that great in a Seiko 5. I do not like Seiko 5s. All of them. I don't like them. I do not think Seiko makes good value watches in the very cheap end, the 50 to 200, 300, 400 even dollar range. I don't like Seiko. I like some of the divers, not all. Some of them are interesting. Presage is what I really like about Seiko. I think these watches are worth it. The dial is really what you go after. The dials are spectacular. They're not Grand Seiko, but they also don't have Grand Seiko prices. I would say Presage is sort of a hint of Grand Seiko. It is sort of where Grand Seiko takes a technique like enamel or lacquer and plays around with it, making something new. Presage just uses the basic technique, which isn't bad. That technique is still interesting and beautiful. It's just not as creative as the Grand Seikos are. Though that triple retrograde Presage with the black lacquer and the gold is pretty creative in my opinion. Overall, I really do like what Seiko has done to the watch industry. Because of the quartz crisis, the industry has been revitalized. In my opinion, I mean, I like to argue that these modern watchmakers are really charging way too much for hand finishing, and it's not a very pretty picture. It's all about luxury, 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 and exclusivity and limited editions, and I really don't like that. But I would argue that by the time the quartz crisis happened, watchmaking was already dead. And with the advent of non-finishing on movements, when the movements started being made by CNC and by machine, and people weren't making the watches by hand, that was sort of the death of the watch industry. And I prefer to have people doing hand-finished watches for extraordinary prices than for nobody to be making hand-finished movements. Now the Presage really represents what Seiko is all about. It isn't about the movement, it's about the dial, completely about the dial. In fact, I'd argue that the most successful Seiko watches are those that you're not even tempted to flip to look at the movement. You're just stuck staring at the dial, especially with the cocktail time. Thanks for watching the video to the end. If you liked it, please subscribe and like the video. Perhaps consider supporting me on Patreon. Any support would be greatly appreciated. I will be coming out with catalog collectors once a week for the foreseeable future. Of course, until I run out of catalogs. We'll see what happens then. See you in the next one.